Ex-girlfriend accuses me of R-wording her after she got caught cheating. So I nuke her entire life. In late May of 2016, I asked my crush, Kate, of about 3 years out on a coffee date. 3 dates later, we made things official. For the next 7 months, our relationship felt too good to be true. We clicked on so many interests, so we hardly ever disagreed on anything. We were very open with each other, which led to an incredible life in the bedroom. We both had good jobs, so we had money to spoil one another, and our families were both enthusiastic about our relationship. In January of 2017, I was accepted into my country's Armed Forces Reserve Program as a combat engineer. I underwent basic training from February to late April, which was up until then the hardest thing I'd ever done. There were several times I thought I wouldn't graduate, and the only thing that kept me going was Kate's words of encouragement over texts and calls. She was there when I received my BTC certificate, and never let me forget how proud she was of me. As part of my job in the reserves, I'd have to go away in the summer for advanced training, between early June to late August. Kate fully supported me going 400 kilometers away to the training center and spending almost all of our summer break on work to further my military career. The summer was brutal on me. I was a social outcast from every clique that formed on our course, and was made the butt of several jokes. My self-esteem plummeted through the floor, but Kate's belief in me was what made me prevail. I passed as 5th best on the course, and I owed it all to her. Then came the decline. Things between us started to sour after returning home. According to her, I wasn't as spontaneous and outgoing as before I went away. I was dismissive, took small jabs and jokes as personal insults, and I'd rather stay in, watch movies, and do the deed instead of going out. Unbeknownst to both of us, I'd developed some nasty social anxiety due to the events of the summer, and it started affecting our relationship. Nearing our 2-year anniversary in 2018, we got into a heated argument over a small misunderstanding, and subsequently broke up. I was incredibly distraught before she texted me 3 days later and said she wanted to try and fix things. I didn't see her for 3 weeks, but we kept in touch every day, slowly mending things. When we officially got back together, nothing felt the same. Every time I talked to her, it was as if I was walking on eggshells, and it only worsened my anxiety, which in turn hurt our already damaged relationship. Then things finally came to a head at the end of July. You see, while in school, Kate had met a dude named John. She saw in John what she used to see in me, and they quickly became very close friends. He consoled her throughout our breakup and every little time I messed up afterwards. For the record, I knew of John, but never thought Kate would do anything with him. One night after work, we'd planned for me to stay the night at Kate's place. I arrived to see the two of them chilling on the living room couch. Kate said that John had dropped by for a spontaneous visit and he was just leaving. After John left, she became cold and distant. I slowly accepted our relationship was dead and asked her how things were between us. She echoed my thoughts and we agreed to break up the next day. She said I could stay the night one last time, seeing how it was late and she was still worrying about me. From then on until she fell asleep, Kate became uncharacteristically glued to and protective of her phone. In the past, she wouldn't care if I'd glanced over to catch her and her friends texting about whatever, but now she did her best to hide questions from me. I asked her about it and she said it was private stuff, which only raised more questions. After she fell asleep, curiosity got the better of me. I unlocked her phone, I knew her passcode, and found hundreds of messages between her and John. Messages about how she was now single, how exciting it was that they could now be a couple in public, and laughing at me about every little thing I did. I quietly sobbed as I read through each hurtful text. My crying wasn't as quiet as I thought. Kate stirred, and once she realized what I was doing, she threw a fit. I couldn't find the anger or words to combat her, so I just grabbed my stuff and left, with Kate shouting and yelling at me the whole time. It was late in the morning when I got home. I just broke down and ugly cried all night. I called in sick for work the next day and spent it sulking in my bed. The day after, I got several angry texts from Kate's friends and family. In a bid to save her image and denounce anything I might say about her, she told anyone she knew that I'd forced myself upon her that night in one last attempt to get some before we broke up, and that I'd left after the deed was done. Though what I did was scarring, she refused to press charges because she didn't want to make a circus of her life in court, and was the bigger person by doing so. I spent the next few months in fear that her allegation would have me discharged from the army and my image forever tarnished, but nothing happened. Here's where the revenge came in. 5 months afterwards, Kate DM'd me. After pleasantries, she basically apologized for the whole thing and admitted to actually faking it, though she'd never publicly admit it to save her reputation. My image be damned, I guess. This angered me, but I kept cool. I screenshot the texts and kept talking with her. Over the next 3 months, she entered a cycle of events as follows. Complaining about a current life situation, usually about John screwing up their relationship in one way or the other, and asking for advice. Lamenting our relationship, how I never screwed up like John did, and how she wished we could go back to the way things were. Then ignoring me because John finally pulled his head out of his butt, did some huge romantic gesture and saved their relationship. Then going on a smear campaign on social media about our relationship, employing her friends for help, knowing in full that I would see it all and trying to bait me into an argument. This would all work, she'd try to turn the argument around and paint me as the bad guy, and then she'd block me for about a month before starting the cycle all over again. This happened 3 times in exactly this order, and it always left me burnt out and broken, but a part of me wanted it to happen. Each time it did, I took screenshots of every damning thing she said. I had a full SD card of everything I'd compiled before I finally decided it was time. Making several picture copies of the worst text messages I caught, I bought several manila envelopes and mailed them to everyone I thought would matter to Kate. Her parents, grandparents, extended family she was super close with, best friends, work boss, co-workers, teachers, whoever I could find a mailing address for. I made sure that anyone getting the envelope would know that the texts were between me and Kate and sent them off. Within 3 weeks, I got results. Some of the people who messaged me to shame and insult me before now apologized for their words. My favorite was from her own parents, who went on to say that they were deeply sorry about their daughter's behavior, how they'd raised her to be better than how she acted, and to please not pursue any legal actions. The thought had crossed my mind, but I didn't have the money or the mental fortitude to fight a legal battle. I told them I'd think about it and that they'd be the first to know besides Kate if I did. Kate sent me some texts as well with things like, "How could you betray my trust like that?" or "You ruined my life, you absolute jerk." And I didn't reply. I just read every angry text that flew in with a satisfied grin and then blocked her when they stopped. I never fully found out how badly her life was affected by my revenge, but I do know that she dropped out of school and no longer has a job. I hope John was worth it. In short, girlfriend cheated on me and falsely accused me of the R word to cover it up. I endured her crap for a year, gathered evidence against her via text messages, and socially nuked her life. Thank you to everyone who's written in with kind words of support. A lot of people have been worrying about my mental state, so I thought I'd relieve those worries. I've been seeing a therapist for 3 months now and have made significant progress. I can't begin to explain how much I owe my therapist for helping me regain some semblance of normalcy in my life. Yeah, well, I'm glad you didn't take things further than just revealing the truth, to be honest, and it's probably better for your own health that you moved on instead of being dragged into months or years in a courtroom battle where both of you spend all of your money and one or both of you get destroyed financially. I'm sorry that what seemed like an ideal partner for you turned into, well, that. I've never worked out why so many couples that survive long-distance relationships so well often end up breaking up so soon after the other party returns. That alone would have been a sad but fair ending to this. The ex just had to go full cheating and lying afterwards to try and destroy our author. It sounds like you both picked up some psychological wear and tear over the years. Hopefully, you both recover in your mental health and go on to be good people again. You seem to be well on your way, and maybe one day she'll come to regret what she did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Where did you learn to speak English? England. This story took place 5 months ago, so it won't exactly be word for word, but I've remembered enough of the event to recite it. So my mum is British, Welsh to be exact. For those who don't know, Wales is the little hump west of England and north of Cornwall. It's a beautiful place known for sheep, alcohol, and mistakes involving sheep and alcohol. My stepmum is ethnically Welsh, but raised in England. Despite this, my nane and taid, Welsh for grandma and grandpa, insisted on her and her brother learning Welsh to preserve their heritage. The Welsh are a proud people, and so they wanted to ensure their children were as immersed as they could be. So she grew up bilingual, went to uni, got a job working for a certain tech giant, and moved to the US to help train their staff. A few years later, she met my dad and joined the family. At the time, I was still getting over my mum, so her presence was less than welcome. Despite this, my stepmom never pushed me or tried to buy her way in. She gave me the room I needed to grieve, and when I was ready, showered me with enough affection to make up for the lost time. She has my eternal love and respect for it, and has become my second mother. Now, we live in a large town in the Midwest, being west of the seaboard but east of the Mississippi. So while most people are open to outsiders, there's the usual few who just want to ruin everything. Around Christmas time, I was visiting home from college with my girlfriend, Charlie, enjoying some quality girls' time with my stepmom. We were in the mall searching for some place that sold plastic modeling glue for my dad, who's really into Warhammer. During this, my stepmom is on the phone with her brother, who still lives in the UK, catching up and sharing some laughs. They were speaking Welsh to each other, which happened to offend a woman who has since earned the title of Karen. We were standing in front of the mall map trying to find the hobby store, when I heard a loud scoff from behind us. I turned to see a woman dressed in a rather nice-looking business suit corralling her kids away like they'd just encountered a streaker. Now, I was ready to let it go, but Charlie can get very defensive of people she likes, so she ended up calling this lady out. "Something offend you, ma'am?" She seemed to ponder her next move before responding with that oh-so-stupid phrase, "You're in America. When you're here, you speak English, not Muslim. My kids don't need to hear that." Now, I've met some pretty stupid people in my life. I've even dated one. But never, ever have I heard of someone confusing Welsh for Arabic, which is what I assumed she meant. They're two very different languages from two very different cultures. The only similarities between them is how little I understand them. However, for someone to be so offended by someone speaking another language, they probably also didn't immerse themselves too much in other cultures. To her, the world probably began in New York and ended in LA. It was at this point that my stepmom hung up. "Now, I know that Americans get a bad rap and all," she said in an obvious British accent, "but it doesn't help when you actively conform to the stereotype." "Oh my God," Karen said with righteous indignation. "Your accent is awful. Where did you even learn to speak English?" My mum held the most deadpan expression she could. England. I swear that I could smell the smoke coming from the flaming mess inside Karen's skull. She looked at Charlie and I, a pair of shockingly Caucasian college brats, and then my stepmom, our even paler chaperone, took a moment to process what she was doing and then walked away, dragging a group of embarrassed-looking tweens with her. I have to give her credit, at least she knew when to quit. My stepmom chuckled, muttered an offensive-sounding Welsh phrase, and then helped us scan the map for the hobby shop. The rest of the day went well, and we had a funny story to tell my dad when we got back. To all my bigots out there who get offended when someone speaks another language, get over yourselves. The world doesn't revolve around you. To all my bilingual friends out there who speak their native tongues, good for you. It's important to keep your culture alive. And to Karen, the next time you try to accost someone for speaking something other than English, at least get the right consonant. So, she's the jerk, right? Yes, she absolutely is. Also, I hope your stepmom delivered her statement in the same BBC Queen's English that I acted it out in, because I can't imagine anything more shocking to a racist than accosting someone for not speaking the lingo only to hear that. In most other cases, at least. Sadly, it doesn't sound like Karen was aware that British English isn't an accent that comes out of the Middle East. You have to wonder if the business suit is for her job or just for show, because I honestly can't think of how someone this ignorant would get a high-power business job. Your mum sounds like an absolute gem, and honestly good on her for keeping her heritage alive and proud in her life. Welsh is an absolutely beautiful language to listen to. Just ask Tolkien, who based the Elvish language and Lord of the Rings off it. The more of that we can have around in our immediate vicinity, the better. Don't fire the guy who holds the patents. This is not my story. I was present for it, sure, but I didn't see all of it personally. Rather, this is my father's story. For some context, my father had a degree in mechanical engineering, either a master's or doctorate. It had taken him years to get, and he was very proud of that. Thanks to his training, he had found his way working for many well-known companies. working primarily with the procedures used to make various things. Over time, he had privately began working on an idea that would revolutionize how school and gym lockers worked. See, my father realized that there was a problem with those kinds of metal lockers. Namely, it was very easy for a person to break into them. What's more, as the lockers were designed, there were multiple moving exposed parts, which meant that if a student put too many books in one, or really anything got against the door, the locker could be jammed shut, making it near on impossible to open. So for several years, Dad toyed with a number of ideas before hitting on a new design which would solve all those problems. The inner workings of the locker's locking mechanism would be contained within the door in such a way that 1. It was impossible for someone to shim or break into, and 2. The entire mechanism would be enclosed, and 3. It was relatively maintenance-free. Now, at this point, my father was the vice president of manufacturing, and apparently there wasn't a clause in his contract that said if he designed anything while working for the company, then he had to turn it over to them for profit. Dad still approached the company, offering them the design, but they weren't interested. Dad sat on the design for a while before eventually just taking out several patents on them and then forgetting about them. About 6 months after his first attempt at getting the company interested, the parent company's owner and chairman of the board passed away, and the board opted to sell off some of the holdings. The company my dad worked for was part of that. The new owners were young guys who seemed to think they knew everything, as young business owners always seem to think, and they set about changing 99% of the way things were being done. At some point, they stumbled across the plans my father had designed. Now, that's where things turned curious. They really wanted to start producing this new design, but as they didn't have all the plans and processes laid out for them, they had to turn to my father for answers. Rather than asking him how to do it or licensing the patents, as any reputable company would have done, they ordered him to turn over all his work or they'd fire him. Dad stood his ground and refused. The new owners and my father went back and forth, arguing over details for several weeks, before finally the new owners fired my father for insubordination. So, on to the revenge. After cleaning out his office and packing things in the trunk of his car, my father headed home and made a few phone calls. He must have gone through 8 or 9 different calls before he got in touch with someone who was interested in what he had to say. See, my dad was under no illusions that the company that had fired him wasn't just going to make those patented lockers on their own. He also knew that though the company itself was relatively small, the owners had money and there was no way he could fight them. However, a larger company could. So he contacted the major competitors and made them an offer. He eventually set up a meeting with some people, wheeled out a prototype he had made, explained how everything worked, and noted that with this system, the company could revolutionize the way lockers were designed, and improve both safety and security. What's more, as he was the only patent holder, for the next 7 or so years, that company could be the only company to produce them. The competitor jumped at the chance and bought all of the patents, both for the design and the process. They even paid my dad a substantial consultancy fee to go out to their manufacturing site and teach their crews how to make the needed tool and die sets to produce them. Less than 6 months after the first company had fired him, their number one competitor was completely destroying them in the market with this new design, and there wasn't a darn thing the first company could do about it. They did try suing my father, claiming he had stolen their intellectual property, but that case quickly evaporated when they had to admit under oath that they'd never actually signed a contract with him, and there was no requirement that he turn over anything he created for the company. In the 7 years from when the second company bought the locker design and process patents, they'd pretty handily moved into the markets that previously they'd been unable to. The first company soldiered on, but by the time the patent had finally expired, they were a shadow of their former selves. The new owners had sold the company at a loss, with the competitor buying it, only to shut that production facility down due to redundancy. It put maybe 200 people out of work, though given how they'd lost so much business, I wager it was far less than that. So yeah, the new guys didn't want to play ball, they threatened the guy that holds the patents on something they want to do, then fired him only to have him take everything to their competitor and effectively put them out of business. Sadly, any money that Dad earned off his little endeavor was lost after an incident that left him disabled. Medical bills being what they are, by the end of it we were pretty much broke. Well, I don't know if this one feels as satisfying, given that our poor old Pops didn't exactly get to enjoy his success long into retirement, and I don't know that his old bosses were the sorts of vindictive jerks that we so often see on the channel. They definitely weren't in the right, though. When a good, loyal employee has a patent that you don't have a claim to, and you'd like to utilize said patent, pay them, goddammit! Otherwise, you're just ruining everything for everyone. You don't get to use this game-changing invention, and they're out of a job. Who wins in that situation? And he took everything further and apparently left them dead in the water for all their trouble in the end. So there you go, former bosses. Don't throw tantrums, pay your employees for their intellectual property. End of story. It's not that hard. It really sucks about the dad not being able to enjoy it all at the end. These stories don't always have fairy tale endings, I guess. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.